I just called the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. I would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional and unceded Stalo territory of the Puyallup, Chilliwack, and Samath. Oh, Superintendent, do I have my inclusion statement?
Put it on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Just 1 second, please. Just 1 second.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. I'll have to get a new paper copy.
Yeah, you want to.
The board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation, and gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. Okay, trustees, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Moved by trustee Bondar, seconded by trustee Westerby. Any discussion on the agenda? Right, all of those in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please? Trustee Maws, seconded by trustee Bondar. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Yes.
Is the motion also to approve the November 7th meeting? Because I don't know if that was circulated.
Yesterday's, oh, no, it wasn't, so we will strike that.
Thank you.
Okay,
So the motion is strictly the October 11th?
Oh, it's October 11th meeting.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I did not notice that. Thank you for the catch, trustee Swanky. So we won't redo the moving and seconding. We'll just strike that from the record of the November 7th. We'll do that at the next meeting. Okay, were there any errors or omissions in the October 11th meetings that anyone saw? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, now we're on to public participation. This is comments or questions concerning the agenda. Does anyone in the public have any comments or questions about the agenda? Not seeing any. Okay, you will have a we will have another opportunity at the end if there's any questions that arise. Okay, so we're moving on to action items. 3.1, 2022-2023 local school calendar amendment.
Thank you, Chair. So you have the information in your package. The recommendation is that the Board of Education amend the 2022-2023 local school calendar and reduce the days in session and days of instruction by 1 day as a result of the observed National Day of Mourning on September 19, 2022 to commemorate the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The province is in the process now of amending the regular school calendar regulations. They are going to reduce the hours of instruction by 5 hours. They'll also reduce the days of instruction also accordingly. And as a result, school districts will be required to, as per the school calendar regulations, amend their local school calendars. So what I have in front of you is the existing school calendar minutes for the 2022-2023 school calendar. And the second one right below is the amended, with the reduction of 5 hours for elementary, middle, and secondary. And then eventually this calendar will be posted on, the amended calendar will be posted on our district website, replacing the existing school calendar.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before we make the motions, trustees? Okay. Anyone like to make the motion? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I did not see it.
No problem.
I apologize.
No problem. Well, I just wanted to know what kind of a monkey wrench did this throw into everybody's calculations for hours and minutes and all the rest of it in all our schools?
Well, this transpired soon after every single school district submitted their school calendar, so accordingly they have to go back and change their existing school calendars. It's a big monkey wrench.
So a big monkey.
Trustee Swanky.
Thank you. Just a question through the chair to staff. Is this going to cause any review by the arbitrator on the agreement for this year's calendar, or is it strictly compliance with the ministerial framework?
Strictly compliance.
Okay, trustees, I don't see any other questions. Would someone like to make the motion? Trustee Bondar?
I will move that the Board of Education amend the 2022-2023 local school calendar and reduce the days in session and days of instruction by 1 day as a result of the observed National Day of Mourning on September 19th, 2022 to commemorate the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II.
I have a seconder for that motion. Trustee Westery, thank you very much. Do you want to speak to your motion? Trustee
I
Fawcett?
do not need to speak.
I'm sorry, does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, not seeing anybody. All those in favor of approving the local school calendar amendment? Thank you, trustees, that's unanimous. Okay, so we're moving on to information items. 4.1 is Budget Advisory Committee Report. Is this Trustee Moss?
Thank you. So I'm doing this for Trustee Mumford, who is not on the board this time around. And so he chaired the meeting. It was pretty much an introductory meeting. We had 4 new students, I believe, and a DPAC rep, and the CTA rep was there, and we went through the introduction, so everybody introduced themselves. We had terms of references and went over the meeting agenda schedule. We discussed the financial discussion and analysis report. Please note, I am not using acronyms for new trustees, right? FSDA. And then the budget timelines and financial reporting. And then we went on to the quarterly report, and from there I'll hand it over.
Thank you very much, Trustee Moss. Was there any questions by anyone about the Budget Committee report? All right, not seeing anybody. We'll move on to 4.2, Quarterly Financial Report. Secretary Treasurer.
Okay. This one is, it's a hard one to explain usually because it's actually 1 month of the school year, so it's the end of the, it does include July and August when certainly our maintenance staff and some our administration are working, but our schools aren't. So it's not it's only one of the 3 months is an actual school in session, so it's not very meaningful. It's also based on our preliminary budget that we approved last year, and so we know there's lots of changes to that they'll be occurring as we put together our amended report. So there is a written document attached explaining the variances, so I won't go into much detail. Did want to highlight one item, the investment income. In the first 3 months of the year, we've got $289,000 already in investment income, and our annual budget is $275,000, so we've already exceeded that for the year. And thanks to the rise in interest rates, bad news for everybody with a mortgage, good news for us with $20-odd million sitting in the bank. It's been going to help us this year with our finances, so that's a big help. One thing we do use this report for is as we're building our amended budget, we're looking at those variances and testing them against our amended budget to see how close we are. So it becomes really helpful to us, and as we continue to build that. And you guys will all be seeing the amended budget in January. So.
Secretary Treasurer, I did have a question myself, and then I'll ask other trustees if they have anything. I know that we were down in revenue because of having a little bit lower enrollment than projected, but I was a little bit unclear looking at this where that is reflected and where I would understand that, because I know there are different numbers, but I'm just not sure where that part is.
Right, so the budget on here still reflects the higher number for enrollments.
Okay.
And the actuals as well, because the ministry won't adjust the grant payments until into the new year for any changes like that. And there'll be other things as well. Our special needs enrollment is up from what we budgeted, although our regular K-12 students are down. So it's very hard to tell from this what that looks like. When we bring the amended budget in January, then we'll be able to show you here's what we approved last year in the preliminary budget. Here's all the changes that have occurred to come to the amended budget. So we'll provide quite a lot of detail explaining what's changed since then. We are looking at a tough budget for this year. We're probably going to be dipping in reserves this year to balance the budget. So just to forewarn you of that. So.
Okay, so we are somewhat on track, except we will probably have to go into reserves. Okay, thank you. Trustees, do we have any other questions? Trustee Moss?
Thank you. So you mentioned that the special needs budget is up. What does that translate to? Did we get more special needs students? How does that work?
So we budget for a 350 student increase in regular K to 12. So based on that, I looked at the same percentage increase in special needs students, and we actually exceeded that. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was fairly substantially higher than our regular enrollment. And we've been seeing that for a few years now, where special needs enrollments are going up faster than the regular population. So, which means more EAs, more resource teachers, those sorts of positions. So.
Trustee Bondar?
My question is just about that investment income. You mentioned it was somewhat unexpected but welcomed. Will that be helpful at all as we move into calculating the amended budget and potentially looking at a shortage? And if so, how much, or negligibly, or?
Okay. Yeah, I don't get the final number, but in excess of an extra $500,000 this year, just in investment income.
So it should be helpful.
Yeah. And the way we have it invested, it's actually invested with the government.
Sorry to
interrupt. Trustee Prosy, can you please press your button?
Okay. So,
Secretary Treasurer was actually coming through your mic, I noticed on the camera.
so we actually invest with the government. So the government generally is borrowing money, and so they borrow from us, from our surplus cash. We get a better interest rate than we would get at the bank. They pay a lower interest rate than they would get at. So we kind of meet each other in the middle, and it works out well for each of us. It's also very liquid for us. We can get our cash out within 7 days if we need it for ongoing operations. So it works out well. And there's no risk. So whether if we put it into investments, there's always the risk that we could actually have a large loss, which I don't want to be the one explaining that.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
No, Trustee Prosy, go ahead.
Well, this is my first time asking a question in a public meeting. So apparently Jerry was speaking through my mic, so I was sounding intelligent. That was a good start. But anyways, my question for you is, Jerry, is what exactly does it mean if we're short on our budget for this year? What does that look like for the future? Like what do we need to be paying attention to? What are some of the solutions that we need to be paying attention to in this matter? I'm just kind of curious because I don't know, like, if we're dipping in reserves this year, is that a one-time thing, or is this a trajectory, or do we need more money from the provincial government, and what do we need to do, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah, we had a lengthy discussion.
How do I turn this off?
Just press the button again.
Oh,
We had a lengthy discussion at our exec this morning about that, and we'll be having more about it because some of it's a systemic shortfall, which means it's going to continue into next year. And if we're short this year, say $1 million, then that number will grow higher next year. And we did some calculations when we presented the budget in the spring last year, where we're feeling the effect of about $1.5 million a year of inflation that is unfunded by the government. So the wage and benefit increases to our union staff is funded by the government. All our other cost increases are funded from within, which means we have to cut somewhere else every time natural gas price goes up, or we give an increase to our principals or vice principals. That's all funded from within. And funded from within means you're cutting something in order to do that. And so that's $1 million, $1.5 million we're dealing with every year that we have to find from within. And it's certainly becoming really, really problematic because it's been years and years now of no inflation funding, and you were just running out of places where we can cut that because our hands are tied on a lot of contract things. So the class size and composition means we have to put so many teachers in the classroom regardless of what we want to do. This is what the collective agreement says we have to do, and those kind of things. So and at the same time, we want to keep good services. We don't want to cut EAs. We don't want to cut custodians. All those have ramifications in the long run, but we're really finding it hard to balance the budget without having those inflation. And this year, especially with the 8-9% inflation, our utilities going through the roof, our benefits are going up dramatically, and there's been no funding for that. So it's certainly something that maybe our board needs to start putting some pressure on the government to start funding some of these types of problems. So, long answer, sorry.
Anybody else? Okay, not seeing any more questions, we'll move on to 4.3 BCSTA report. This would be Trustee Swinky.
Thank you. I will highlight a few things related to the upcoming academy and business being conducted there, and I'll try to keep it brief. If there's questions, we can get into some of the details of that business. At Academy, there will be a couple of important events happening on the Friday morning. The BCST Provincial Council meeting will take place. We'll have by-elections for the Vice President of the Association, possibly for a member of the board. If a member of the board becomes the Vice President, there will also be the Fraser Valley branch has brought forward their constitution and bylaws to be adopted or approved rather at that meeting. That'll be on the floor. And in line with inflationary pressures, there was an emergent motion related to inflationary pressures for member boards being addressed at Provincial Council. I also want to highlight that the Saturday morning we have our first branch meeting over breakfast, so hopefully all members in attendance are able to join us that morning. I'm happy to go into the details of PC and the business there, but I also know maybe that's a conversation to be had at Academy.
If you feel there's anything really relevant you want to share now, or it's fine if you want to do that as an email or later on at Academy, it's fine. Yeah. So we did have our board election yesterday, and so Trustee Reed will be doing BCSTA reports from now on, but she hasn't obviously had an opportunity to do any of that yet, so it would be pretty weird for her to give the report tonight. So thank you, Trustee Swanky, for stepping in. Does anyone have any questions for Trustee Swanky? Oh, Trustee Westerby.
I was just wondering about the details of the breakfast and that everyone was invited.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That will all be in the agenda. So I don't think that's been circulated yet, but it is on the hub. Branches get their own room. We'll be there with our other four other boards that are part of the Fraser Valley branch.
That happens every year at Academy, and also at the AGM we also have one usually. So it's part of the event as you go and meet with your branch. All right. Moving on to, trustee written reports are in the package for those of us who were trustees before and did one. And then we're moving on to meeting summaries, which are also in the package for everyone to look at. The next 4.6, next Board of Education meeting is December 6, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And we're moving on to Item 5, which is public participation, questions concerning the agendas. If anyone in the public has any questions about the agenda, now's your big chance. All right. Not seeing any, we're moving on to Item 6, which is adjournment. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting.
That was so fast.